Hi gaming guys, and welcome to episode 31 of Days Gone By, the review series for Gran Turismo's old school vehicles, classic cars, vintage cars, some which are more useful for racing, others which are more adept at being collector's pieces, and some which can do both. Now this particular vehicle is a car which probably the majority of Gran Turismo 6 players have owned or do own. The Beetle. The Volkswagen Beetle. This is the premium classic Beetle. It has a price tag of 60 grand, which in a way is quite expensive, but at the same time is kind of understandable because it is such a historically significant car. It's really nicely done. Visually, it has that full premium treatment with modifiable bodywork, etc., and it really does look good. And due to the fact that it is a classic that is so historically significant, it's not too surprising that it costs a little bit more than some others. Now, as far as what it's capable of, straight off the bat, this is the superior Beetle to go for out of the classics, because there is of course an even older version of the Beetle, which is not a classic car, it's a vintage car, because of how much older it is. It's a non-premium, it's also reasonably expensive given its performance, but at the same time understandable, perhaps even more so in the case of that model, and I do actually really like that car as well. One of the things that I really like about the older Beetle is that it has the split rear window, which I think looks pretty cool. This is by far the superior car of the two though, so if you're looking purely for performance, and really for its overall package, this is the one to go for. The older Beetle, the non-premium, is really only for pure collectors. I personally like owning the car, but it's not an essential piece for everyone. This vehicle is far more useful than that car. As far as what you get for the money, you're looking at, of course, a rear-mounted, air-cooled, rear-wheel drive, 1.2 litre, which you can turbocharge up to a pretty decent 181 horsepower. It also puts out 273 foot-pounds of torque, which is really impressive given the power, but at the same time isn't too surprising given that this is of course a boxer engine, very torquey engines, used also by Subaru and Porsche, and the car is very light, as older cars tend to be. It weighs in at 694 kilos, and given the fact that the Beetle actually isn't that small, that's pretty good. The Beetle is certainly not a large car, but at the same time, it's an okay car. It's a decent sized vehicle. Now the horsepower per tonne is pretty good, due to how low the weight is, 261 to be exact. And the fully tuned PP on this vehicle, I would say is actually pretty reasonable. It sits at 478, which I would say certainly isn't too high for this car. At the same time, I don't personally race this vehicle that high. It's more adept at say 425 or 450 pp, or of course lower if you wanted to. Now for its power, this is a fast car. It's seriously quick through corners especially. It has a very high average speed potential through twisty corners. It has a nice flow to the steering, and although due to the rear engine rear drive layout similar to a Porsche, or in the case of Gran Turismo a roof, you can lose control if you overcook it on a corner, especially in fully tuned form. Generally speaking, the handling is very good. The car gives you a lot to work with, you get plenty of feedback, which is one of the best points I think about an older car. You can really feel the vehicle. It's not electronic at all, it's completely mechanical, it's just you and the machine, and I prefer that every time. Now as far as straight line performance, this is an amazing car. The top speed isn't that great, the acceleration isn't that great, it's not awful, but it's not really going to worry many other vehicles in its category, or beyond its category. There are many classics which can take on modern cars and beat them. This isn't really one of those. It's a car which definitely is useful, but only really within its own category. It's a good classic, and one of the main advantages of this Beetle against other classics is just how good the cornering speeds that it can reach are. It's not necessarily the best handling of classics, but the combination of the handling, the low weight, the centre of gravity on the car, and also the fact that the light front end is a factor due to the rear engine rear wheel drive layout actually helps the car. Now, beyond going up against other classics, the lack of top end power in particular makes it suffer. It's not a vehicle that's going to take on vehicles like the Dome Zero, the Mazda RX 500, various others like that. I don't think many people would expect it to, but just for those who may wonder, it cannot take on those cars, no way near. So if you do plan to use this vehicle for racing, I wouldn't try to dissuade you from that. It does have its uses for racing, most definitely, and it's a very fun car to drive. At the very least, even, it's a great collector's piece. I'm personally a big fan of the way the Beetle looks, and it does make a very nice car just to own for the sake of it. For racing, it's a little more niched. Now overall, I would actually recommend both of the Beetles, the classic ones in particular, but as I said earlier, this is, if you're only going to buy one of the two, definitely the one to go for. So for 60 grand, it's perhaps a little bit more expensive than it should be given its performance, but is kind of justifiable at the same time due to just how historically important and significant the Beetle is. Production was huge on this car and ran for a very long time, decades upon decades of production. So overall, if you're looking for a vehicle that is a legend, and one which can still kick it against rivals under the right circumstances, you may want to check out this Beetle, because it's at the very least a very fun car. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.